All right, so stuff we worked on in class tonight is really just a collection of guard pulls. We started off with kind of just the simple idea of just like sitting down, you know, like straight and playing guard, but really felt like that's kind of cheap, and we want to do something a little, you know, with a little more possibility of advantage when we go with this kind of thing. So, you know, if you just take a 2-on-1 grip, if you take this kind of grip, both are good, but I want to kind of square his legs up to me. So like I start to move him, now he's kind of squared to me. And a nice little guard pull that I like to play with is I keep my head forward, and I'm sitting, my feet connect, and I'm just pushing him down, okay? Go back up for just a second from here. When you're here, think about your grips pulling. I think of my grips kind of like pulling between his legs. If at any point you feel like he's too based, you're like pushing all up here, these upper body grips are not nearly as good as coming down here and doing this. And also keep in mind that your feet need to be actively engaged. So like if you were to lift a foot, I'm gonna stay with that foot, okay? And you kind of have to be used to doing that versus if I'm just like, my legs are just lazy there, he'll step out of that too easily. Like he does that same step, and now I'm still there, boom. I knock him down. Whenever you knock him down, 2-on-1 grip right away rather than leg attack entries because it's too 50-50 for me. If I have one foot off the ground, when we go to stand up, I can beat him to a standing position given that a standing position is defined by 2 feet on the ground, okay? How you pass from here is up to you. And there could be some things you could look at to make that more advantageous when you come up. That was one of the big things we looked at. Another thing we looked at was just if we have the gi and he grips here, he takes that kind of standard grip like this. I have this possibility of coming up and kind of gripping his shoulder. I want to be material behind the shoulder, material to the side of the shoulder, and I'm gonna square him up by my movement. So like I put weight into my right leg, which makes my left leg like light. I bring my left leg around, I make my left leg heavy. Once it gets heavy, I'm gonna sit my butt basically to my heel. It starts to come right down in, straight into my arm bar, okay? So I'm targeting, I'm trying to basically create some energy going across him. And this grip, very hard to do this no-gi, but this grip is designed so that once we get down there, it's hard for him to remove his arm, which where he's strongest in removing his arm is back through his back muscles and everything, but I'm attached to here. Obviously from here, he can remove his grip, right? And it's like, of course, if he removed, we could like work and do other things, right? But like he decided to commit to that. I'm leaning on this leg, head going over my knee, sliding across and bringing him down. One key point that we looked at, stand up for a second, is if you get to like something like here, I want the foot further over on this side of the hip than I would. I definitely don't want my foot over here. I'm never gonna get to the arm bar. Or I'd have to do something like that, which is a little less ideal. But if I'm here, like he pulls back hard or something, I'm like, yeah, I lost the energy and the motion. Nothing is really lost in my mind. I can still arm bar him. I'm gonna straighten my leg and touch the back of my heel to the back of his head. Just like that. That's what I'm using to break him down. Now I can of course bring this over and look to finish. You can push him through, finish from the mounted position as well if you want to. There were a few things we did in between there as well, but another guard pull that we looked at, because guys have been wanting to like get in on the legs, is always we're working to like square his stance. So like if he's bladed to me, it's always harder for me to do most takedowns, but not all. So we worked on some stuff where like, yeah, here, just move this way, just a little bit. So when I move you, it'll put it right in the camera. We worked on a technique of stepping out and then kind of rotating him so that my legs line up with his. We did an inside trip from there, but we also looked at going to leg entanglements, which is, I'm gonna step in close to his foot, and I'm basically gonna just sit right down underneath, pull him forward, and start bringing my leg over for that ashigarami. Like, the slower you go, obviously, the harder it's gonna be to do it. If he goes with it, you know, you're kind of like going through all the kinds of things that you would need to do for like heel hook finishes. If he goes through with it and you're in IBJJF or something like that, he starts rolling, you kind of have to be a little more cautious about not getting called on a knee reap, in my opinion. So, but that's just him choosing to go that way. So that's not a knee reap until you're actively driving it from this hip to that hip. But if he straightens back up from here, you're just looking to do the classic Ashigarami sweep. The angle is like this. I want the energy to go up and over. An important point is my head off the ground, not my head on the ground. Wiggle your foot and your leg. It's all pretty good. Keep wiggling. As my head comes off the ground, everything kind of tightens up. Energy goes up in this direction. And we looked at finishing the foot lock here. The critical detail I was looking at was coming under, getting your grip. Everything feels pretty tight. I'm like crushing your toes there, sorry. Like I want his toes to be kind of crushed inside my armpit, all right? I got to crush there and see how my elbow's on the ground. The main thing I was helping people work on tonight is I'll loosen this up just so that it's not like too gnarly for you. I'm gonna take where my elbow is and replace my shoulder with the exact position where my elbow is. So that when I come down, that's very tight. And then hips engage, very, just hips engage just like you were doing an arm bar to finish it there. But like, it's a big difference. Again, I'll hold it very loose. If I just fall like that, it's not very tight, right? If I move my shoulder back, now it's loaded. And if you're doing it right, I feel like a good foot lock, with the exception of like there's got a certain percentage of people that just have gnarly, strong ankles that you probably almost never break them. But like, for the most part, if you are doing everything right, the moment that shoulder hits the ground, they'll probably start tapping, just because it's already so much pressure on the ankle that before you use your hips, you should be able to make people like put their hand up like they wanted to tap.